What was 2023 like for you? Hello, friend. Welcome back to the Finding Freedom podcast, where we talk about how to feel more calm, connected, heart-centered, grateful, abundant, and empowered so you can find true freedom and create the life you are meant to be living. Blink once and it's Christmas. Blink twice and it'll be January 1st, 2024. So today, on episode 14 of the Finding Freedom podcast, I wanted to spend some time with you reflecting on 2023. But before we do that, let's reflect back a little further. Almost 4 years ago, yes, you heard that correctly, and I'm sure you remember it, we had a huge energy shift in the world. In 2020, we had a major worldwide crisis that won't be named today, which led to a great deal of stress, worry, and fear, but also a worldwide awakening. 2020 was the year when what had been simmering below the surface finally bubbled up and flowed over in a big way. And it greatly impacted every single soul on this planet, as I know you're aware of. And of course, if you're listening to this today, there's a high chance that you have had a massive shift in your consciousness between then and now, which likely led to shifts in your life. So I want to reflect on this a little bit because I think it's really important. Maybe you shifted locations. Maybe you shifted what you chose to do for a living. Maybe you left a relationship or started a new one. Maybe you ended friendships or started new ones. Maybe you changed the way you do things in life, like improving your physical health, your mental health, or your emotional health. Or maybe you became more spiritual, more aware, more awake. Or maybe you did many of these things. Now, most likely to achieve any of these things, what happened to you? You shifted the way you think, which shifts the way you feel. And as a result, you become a completely different person. And so that's the person you are today, which is likely very different from the person you were 4 years ago. Now, you may say, Bianca, 4 years is a long time. Of course, I'm going to change greatly within that time. And if this is your reaction, I want you to really reflect on how great a change you think there has been. I say this because when I reflect back on who I was from the 4 years prior to 2020, so from 2016 to 2020, while there was most definitely a lot of growth, I moved to China in 2015. I had a relationship and I ended that relationship. I had things like my grandmother pass away. I became a nutritional therapist. I went out on my own when I was living in China, got my own place, had to sort of redefine who I was as a single person living in China. So there most definitely was a lot of growth for me. But there were a lot of behaviors, a lot of attachments, a lot of thought patterns that I was not prepared to let go of. You know, I had some other relationships after the one prior had ended. And I was not a greatly different person. I was still very much stuck in the way I did it before. And that Bianca was pretty similar to the relationship that I had had when I was 17. all the way up until like 28. So there were lots of things that I was resistant to changing. And I think I still lived this particular existence because I was too afraid to do it any other way. Or more importantly, I didn't know that I could, or I didn't believe that I was capable of doing anything other than what I was doing. I knew about growth. I wanted to change. But for whatever reason, I just wasn't pushed to change. I enjoyed comfort because comfort helped me feel safe. And I also had a pretty dysregulated nervous system. So I really needed to feel comfortable. And I needed to find ways to feel safe all the time. And it didn't matter to me if this kept me small, that if I didn't change very much. But that said, I am aware of the incredible person I was becoming. Those 4 years were preparing me for who I needed to be, who I needed to step into from 2020 onwards. And I am sure the same or similar is for you. From 2020 and for the last 4 years, we were forced to really take a good look within. We were forced to reassess who we are or who we were and what we wanted and want for our lives. We had to figure out what made sense to us, what felt most in alignment, and if we had the courage to follow that. We had to figure out what we were prepared to do and prepared to let go of, what we were needing to still hold on to. And then things like how we were willing to be seen and heard, and how we were willing to show up in relationships with others. If we were prepared to show them who we truly were or are, and to not be afraid of their reaction if we showed up this way. So we had lots of choices to make in 2020, but I feel like we were all kind of pushed a little bit more. I feel like the universe was really going, we have to change. This has been going on for way too long, and the world is not the place that any of you want it to be, but that's what you keep creating. So we're just going to push you and see if you'll reassess everything. And so for myself, if I'm honest, I did so much growing and learning and shifting and changing that I feel like I woke up a new person every month, sometimes every week, maybe even every day, as I got sort of new information come into my world and into my awareness. So I personally believe that rapid transformation happened to us all from 2020 onwards. Some more than others, but still it was fast and it was a lot. And so I think at the end of 2023, as we move into 2024, it's like this 4-year cycle or period that is coming to an end, the end of the big shift. Now, I feel that there are still going to be more shifts, big shifts coming in 2024, personally and for the whole world. How could there not be? We're in such a state right now all around the world. There's so much going on, and I don't follow the news. So if you do, you're probably way more in tune with what is going on than I am. But we are at that precipice of transformation. So there's always that period where we have to grow and learn, and things might feel stagnant for a while, or things might feel real dark and hard and tough and scary for a while. And I know for me, it was at least a couple of years, 2020, 2021, even 2022, and definitely part of 2023. But I feel like as we're about to be birthed into 2024, there literally is going to be a rebirth for us all. And it's almost like we're going through a portal into something completely different, something completely new, even if more shit hits the fan simultaneously. So it's going to be really exciting. But there definitely still will be residual shit and residual fear from the past, well, lifetime. But let's zoom in a little now. Let's focus on these past 12 months. I want you to go back to the very first day of 2023. Now, what I encourage you to do is to make some notes as I'm talking. If you have that space to do that now, you can pause this podcast as you go through, make some notes, or maybe you're someone who really likes to process in the mind. Personally, I prefer to write things down, but you can always come back and listen a second time as well. But I think it's really important, and I really, really encourage you to take notes, to journal, to really sit in a space. And maybe you turn off this podcast and say, I don't have the space for this now. I'm going to come back, on Friday or whenever you have that time to sit in that space and reflect. And make the time for it. Please make the time for it. Even if you don't do it along with this podcast, make the time to reflect on your year and how it unfolded. We forget so much to acknowledge things. And this is your opportunity. This is your reminder to do that. Because when you do that, you'll see the great change and you'll see the blossoming that you've done over this year. But I keep getting distracted. So let's go back to January 1st, 2023. How did you ring in 2023? Take a moment to think back to the beginning of the year. And boy, oh boy, does that feel like 4 years ago, 10 years ago? Can you even remember what happened on January 1st, 2023, or where you were December 31st, 2022? If you can't remember, because I couldn't, I want you to open your phone, take that out, have a little look-see through your photos, and go back to January of this year. And I have no doubt you will find a reminder of where you were and what you were doing on January 1st, 2023, and how you spent the new year. I rang in the new year in a beautifully conscious way, and I can't believe I didn't remember it because it was so beautiful. I ran an in-person workshop with a friend, and we sat in circle with some of the most beautiful souls and shared our gifts and our talents with them, as well as our vulnerabilities and what we wanted to create. And we really sat in this space of creation with them for the year of 2023. It was all about creating for the year. I remember my friend nearly pulling out of the event at the last minute, the friend that was hosting it with me. And this was all due to her health, and how that really challenged my belief in myself in that moment. Could I run this event on my own if I had to? And despite some fear, the answer was yes. Yes, I could. But damn, I really wasn't ready to embrace that. And I realized how many thoughts I was having about my worth and my value. People weren't coming for me. They were coming for her. I only offered this much. She had so much more to offer than me. There was a lot of comparison happening and just a lack of belief in myself, even though I'd been doing so much work on it for so long. And I really loved this version of me. I was in a good place. But a year later, we really are two different women. It's really beautiful to reflect on that today. So if you can, think back to this person. Where was he or she at New Year's Eve? What did you decide around that time about how your year would go? And then think about whether you believe that you created that change for yourself. Now, I know that New Year's resolutions are a big thing, and you may have given up on them if you've tried and not followed through in past years. I know I don't personally do New Year's resolutions. Well, I guess I do a form of them. I don't call them that, but I sit in a space of creation for what I want, creation and manifestation. But you may also have had your own success stories too. So maybe you're still doing what you call New Year's resolutions and you're very committed to them. So just reflect on, did you set any goals for 2023? And whether you did or you didn't, you may think that you didn't make any advancements this year, which is okay. But I can guarantee that you definitely moved in that direction, even if just in a small way. Let's talk about location. Where are you positioned now compared to the beginning of the year? Personally, as you're probably aware, I'm now living a nomadic life with my cat, George, and we're currently in Townsville in Queensland, Australia at the time of this recording. We roam from place to place, town to town, having an experience and obviously learning so much along the way. We are in search of the next chapter, though. Well, I am. A more settled chapter I'm looking for. Even though this has been one of the most beautiful chapters of my life, I'm ready, getting ready to settling down, to calling somewhere home and building a little bit of a new experience for myself. When I looked through my photos of the months before we left Victoria, I was actually looking to buy a van and I was really keen on this one van. But the universe did everything in its power to stop me from buying that van. It forced me into a place of frustration at first, and that frustration led me to try to control the situation. And the more I tried to control it, the more out of my control it was, because I wasn't in flow and I wasn't meant to go down that path. Something better is always in store for us. And so when we're pushing up against something, which I was doing, and there was resistance, it just wasn't flowing. Eventually, I listened and I got the message and I realized it wasn't the right thing to do. And I've since looked back and I've since reflected on this and realized what a blessing it was that I didn't buy that van. So what about you? Where were you located throughout the year? And how has this changed? You may very well be in the same location. Not everybody is meant to move. I think it's probably more of a rare thing to move than it is to stay in the one place. But has anything shifted within your environment? And as I said, I really recommend that you take some time to journal on all of what we discussed today. Pause the recording if you need to. Do it as we go, or just reflect in your thoughts now and write it down later, or come back and listen again and do it then when you have the space. I want you to think now about some of the big things that you did, like the things that really transformed you, that caused you to open up, embrace who you are, step into a higher energetic version or expression of yourself. That expression who is more reflective of who you came here to be, who you came to Earth to be. The first big thing I did for 2023 that I had never done in my life was I participated in a dance performance. A friend of mine, shout out to Abby. Abby invited me to join her weekly dance fitness classes, and that led to joining a performance class. So we would have a lesson every week. We would learn a routine, and then at the end we would perform this in front of a group of people. And it was truly beautiful to witness my commitment and my ability to rise to the occasion. I was truly proud of myself for stepping into that version of me and doing something that probably a year prior I likely would have refused to do due to fear. And I had such a good night that night. The dance was so fun. I pretty much nailed it, like the whole routine. And I felt super liberated while doing it. I felt so lit up inside, so pumped. It was really, really cool to feel all that adrenaline coursing through my veins and knowing that it was coming from a place of fun and excitement rather than a place of stress and overwhelm. It was a really, really great night. And I think this contributed in a big way to my energetic state going into the next huge transition, which was only a few days later, maybe even the next day or day after, that I got on the plane to fly to the Sunshine Coast for the Joe Dispenza week-long advanced retreat, meditation retreat. So I was reeling off the back of this performance, feeling really hyped up, really good about myself. And then I went into this meditation retreat on a high. And as a result, I would have, without this high, had such a powerful experience. I've never taken part in anything like it before. And I most definitely left as one person and came back as someone completely new. However, the stepping into that version of myself was not a solid shift. I noticed when I returned how I would slip into the older version of myself as I was like triggered by a person in my life, and how hard it was to hold on to that new version of me. But she was definitely there and she wasn't going anywhere. But I had to slip and fall many times in order to realize that I had to make some big choices and changes in my mindset and life in order to really, truly embody her. And for me, that involved changing my environment. And that happened, that inspiration I got from being on that retreat. As I said, I was on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, and we were doing these walking meditations. And as I was walking on the beach, I just heard my body, my mind, everything saying to me, this is where you belong, by the water, toes in the sand, surrounded by this life force, drinking in the sun codes, being more in nature. So that experience, being on the beach, doing those meditations, feeling the way I felt, surrounded by all those really high vibrational souls, was a thing that propelled me to really make the shift to Queensland as soon as possible. So I returned to Victoria. I found myself a house sit. I bought a car, and 1 month later, I was gone. And as you're probably aware, if you listen to this podcast and read my content, that's what I've been doing since, living this life, going from place to place. And while that might seem relaxed and fun, it's been a wild ride. There's been lots and lots of growth, lots of bumps, lots of scary stuff, lots of healing. So make sure you reflect on these big things you did in 2023, even if it was just something that happened last week. Another thing that really caused me to be so challenged and made me grow so much was losing a tooth. I know it sounds really simple, but when I got on the plane to come back from Joe Dispenza's retreat, I took a bite of some food and I just heard this big crack. And I'd had a problem with one of my teeth on the gum. I'd had an abscess that had come and gone and come and gone. And at that point, after that meditation retreat, it was almost like it was healed. It wasn't there. But clearly, I had weakness and the tooth was dying, or the roots were dying. And I hadn't done enough to transform that, to heal it. And, you know, everything is meant to happen the way it happens. And so I heard that crack and, oh man, the denial. That didn't happen. I'm fine. I didn't hear a crack. No. It's like, it's fine. I just won't eat on that side. So I didn't action that until I got to Queensland. I think that was around June or July. I can't quite remember. But losing that tooth, whew, it really changed me, really challenged me and changed me. And even though I'm going to try to grow it back because I believe this is possible, yes, you might think I'm crazy. It was a total adjustment losing a tooth. So our teeth are said to carry such deep wisdom, and I felt a lot of trauma leave my body when that tooth was removed. I cried a lot. And it was more than just the attachment. There was a lot there. But for the removal of my tooth, I was also connected with an absolute angel who did this procedure. I was super blessed to have incredible support through this challenging time. And it wasn't a straightforward experience. I had to sort of really listen to my intuition and be guided as to who was going to do this procedure. And that beautiful angel, Abby, shout out again, she was the one that put me in touch with this man. And I just got so much incredible support and felt so heard and so seen. And the procedure was done in the best way that it could have been done for me. So again, think about all of those big things that happened to you. Maybe you got really sick or broke something or lost something or lost someone. Whatever those big events were, you've really got to reflect on them. Well, you don't have to do anything, but I really do encourage you to reflect on them, because sometimes in the moment we forget to do that. But let's reflect now on the people that have come into your life in 2023. And I've already mentioned some of the angels that have been in my life from both Victoria and in the many other locations that I've been to since. So reflect on all those situations, all those big things that happen, all those things that you were like, wow, this is just so tough. Why is this happening? Why do I have to go through this? And you'll always find that there's someone there for you in that moment. Those people who are just there at the right time to show you compassion or support. Maybe it's just passing you on the street with a smile or a kind gesture or a word. Or maybe it's someone who like brings you some really useful or helpful information that shifts your situation, your emotions, brings you more security into your life. So how many angels have you come across this year, and what did they bring into your life? And when I say angels, I mean people who have been there for a moment or people who have been there for a longer period of time. I remember this one time when I was in a car park. I was sitting in my car putting something into the GPS to go to the next place. And this guy knocks on my window and says to me, "You know, you've got a flat tire." Now, while it really didn't make me happy to have a flat tire, that man, that angel, was an absolute savior for me. because I could have kept driving without realizing and really damaged my car or had an accident. So I got out of the car. First, I took a deep breath and I was like, oh, okay, this is figure outable. I've never had this situation happen to me before, but I can do it. I can get through this. It's not that big a deal. And so I got out of the car to talk to this guy. He wasn't even a local, but he gave me some great advice. He knew what to do and he helped me out just for a split second. And I just couldn't believe how lucky I was. And so I slowly drove my car to a servo down the road that had a little mechanic. And I asked if they had the time to help me. And they literally dropped everything and fixed my tire right there and then. You know, I could see that they were working on other cars. I could see they had a car park full of cars. But they just stopped and said, yes, drive your car in here. We can help you. I was blown away. And then they barely charged me for it. I don't know what they normally charge or if they even charge, but this guy just took me in, helped me out. And within what felt like minutes, I had no more problem with the tire. I couldn't believe how everything was just taken care of so quickly and cheaply. And I was on my way, carrying about my life just as before. They're the angels. Then there are those angels who are there longer term. Like the woman who taught the yoga class I decided to join for the 3 months I was in that particular location. She is a beautiful teacher and she's a total pillar of the community. I witnessed how much she brought people together and how she quickly opened her arms to me and welcomed me into that community, even though she knew I wasn't going to be there for long. Angel. So who were yours? How did they appear in your life in 2023? And in what capacity did they come in? As a friend, lover, teacher, guide, random passerby? So yeah, reflect on this, journal on this, be grateful for all of these beautiful people. And let's move on now to animals. Are you connected to animals? I personally feel in the future, we'll all live in harmony with nature at some point. And I think this shift has already started to happen as more people desire to live a more natural life. How did you feel about animals and being in nature at the beginning of 2023? And has this shifted for you? Do you have more of a desire? Are you more drawn to nature or to be in the space of animals? And how much time have you spent in these spaces? Maybe you received a new animal in your world and it's teaching you a lot about life and love, because animals are really, they love unconditionally. For me personally, cats, who I'm very deeply drawn to and connected to, it's something I usually cannot explain to other people because they just simply don't understand. And you might be one of those people. And that's okay. But cats have been big teachers for me, but also big support, big love for me. My number one guy, George, he teaches me so much all the time. And as you know, he's on this adventure with me. And I just think, what a champion of a cat to be in location after location and simply adapt. Like last week, like just before we arrived in Townsville, we were on holiday for a week. That holiday was 2 days in one Airbnb. I went out for a day to go to a rainforest and to swim under a waterfall. Left him back at the place. And then we got in the car and we drove another few hours to another location. He moved into another place for 4 nights. I would go out during the day, come back, find him, and then we'd get in the car, drive another few hours, get to the next location, and then he moved into this place with me. Like, we're told that animals can't adapt so well, especially animals like cats. And it makes me wonder if we've misunderstood animals and they're actually more adaptable than we think they are, especially when we connect with them. Because every living being with a brain, with a nervous system, needs to feel safe. So if you provide an animal with that safety and that support, it makes me think that any animal could be just as adaptable as what George is. And that George is not an anomaly, but could be the norm. But we've got to change how we view animals. And I started this course this year about working with animals. And although I didn't finish it, I've been practicing some of the techniques that I learned. And it's helped me to connect so much more with animals. And I've house sat dogs. And I've lived in places where there have been horses in paddocks and cows in paddocks. And it's been a really beautiful experience to be able to connect with these different species of animals. Even though they're not my animal of choice, I'm a cat person through and through, but to be able to connect with them and feel such peace and respect in that space with them, I think this is how the world is going to, the direction the world is going to move into. I think this is the direction the world is moving towards, having this peace and equality, more peace and equality with animals. And then there's nature. How often have you found yourself gravitating towards the grass, the ocean, the sun, the trees this past year? Or maybe you're craving a different, more natural environment, even if you haven't taken the steps to go there. Maybe you're aware that you're, living in a container, feeling out of touch with nature. I remember feeling that really deeply after 5 years in China, thinking, man, I've been living in a box in the sky for 5 years. This is very unusual. And that's the lifestyle of a lot of people in the world. A little different here in Australia, given that we have houses, but we still often don't leave these spaces, or we go from one box to another. We don't get out and witness or experience what's in between. I know for me, I've spent some beautiful moments walking through forests and up hills and mountains on this journey since May, and it's been spectacular. But I must say now that I'm in the tropical part of Queensland, in far north Queensland, the tropical rainforest is what I love most. Palm trees and all the greens of the tropics lights me up, makes me smile. But it could be anything really. Maybe you're starting to notice flowers more, stopping to smell them. Maybe you've been seeing butterflies everywhere, or a particular bird keeps visiting your backyard and now it's become your friend that you feed and speak to. Just take a moment to reflect on animals and nature, and if this has shifted for you in 2023, and if it hasn't, if you'd like it to in 2024. So the next thing I would like you to reflect on is how your thoughts changed in 2023 from beginning until now. Go back through the events and happenings of the year and consider which events led to these thoughts changing. They probably all helped you to shift a little bit more. And Also reflect on how hard it was to change these thoughts, how hard it was feeling challenged in that moment. Did they change all of a sudden or did they take time? How many times did you get triggered over and over and over again for you to finally say goodbye to these thoughts? How attached were you to these thoughts and beliefs? I remember when I quit coffee in 2020, it was so easy. But I tried to quit coffee so many times before that. And I'd quit coffee, but I hadn't had the success that I wanted. It wasn't ever long term. So, what changed to find it so hard all those times before and then suddenly so easy? It was my mindset. I was no longer attached to coffee. I had outgrown the need for it. And in my mind, it was no longer something that I needed or wanted. So it made it just so easy to say, I'm not drinking this anymore. I wasn't having the thoughts anymore of like, what will I use as a substitute? What will I drink when everyone else is having coffee? What will I say when people ask me why I quit? I just didn't have any of these thoughts anymore because I just didn't care. And the desire wasn't there anymore. So, what thoughts did you let go of in 2023? Ones that you no longer wanted to think about yourself in your life? Who were you fed up being because of these thoughts? You know, I realize how I kind of recycle thoughts all the time. And the same thoughts keep coming back up into my awareness. And how it causes me to place attention on the things that I don't want to place attention on. So since 2020, I am, I've aged more than I cared to admit. I damn well love myself, but I've found the thoughts creeping in of, you've let yourself go. Can you see the cellulite on your thighs? No one's going to love you for that cellulite. Things are drooping. Why are things drooping? Do something, Bianca. Hurry up. You're only getting older. So we go through these cycles, I believe, where we get to this place of like achievement, where we feel like we've had great success with things. Like I worked very hard on self-love from 2020 onwards. And I love myself. There is no doubt about that. But these thoughts pop up and it challenges that. And I can see how these thoughts are coming and going and coming and going and coming and going. And the more I become aware of them, the more I dislike them. I gave into them for a period of time. And then it's got to this point where I'm like, I don't want to think these thoughts anymore. I don't care if I have cellulite. Yes, I'm going to do everything I can to maintain my health and maintain my wellness and take care of me and do the things that make me happy. And if that means working out, then working out. And usually that's what happens when you rise to that bigger, better version of yourself. You're not afraid to push yourself. You're not, you go for the things that you want. And if you want to transform your body, you can do that. It doesn't have to be through exercise, of course, but exercise is a great modality to use. So I'm still in this process, still in 2023, And hopefully I can let it go before the end of 2023. But if I can't, that's okay. But there's an attachment to these thoughts because I still believe them. Not entirely, but there is a part of me that is refusing to let go of them. So, and I don't want to be that person. I want to love myself for my cellulite and for all of the things that quote unquote are undesirable, are not beautiful, are not perfect. I've been getting more gray hair, and most people would say they're completely not noticeable. If I do nothing, you really won't see them, but I see them. And so I'm noticing the thoughts I'm having around that, and how aging is something that I'm dealing with right now, something that I'm working through in my mind about a challenge, because it's challenging that conditioning that we were raised to believe that as you get older, you are less desirable, less attractive, less valuable, is what I've made that mean. How many old people are just pushed to the side, like they're no longer, valuable citizens in the world. Let's just put them in an old folks' home and be done with them. When those people should be the elders that we look up to, that we go to for advice, that we talk to for strength and support and leadership. But sadly, that's not how it goes in our culture, in many cultures. We no longer see that old person as that wise, wise woman. So I guess what I'm trying to say in all of that is that I'm getting to that breaking point of I don't want to have these thoughts anymore. They're exhausting and they're a waste of my attention. And I don't want to be connected to them anymore. I don't want to be attached to them. So I want to let them go. I want to be okay with all of that. It doesn't mean I'm not going to work on changing to be the best version of myself, but I'm going to let go of the thoughts because they're not serving me. And the only one that they put down, that they upset, is me. Nobody else is affected by my thoughts. So, are there thoughts that you have had in 2023 that you've let go of? If you did, fucking congratulations, because that's a big deal. That's letting go of an attachment. That is breaking down conditioning. And that is really powerful. And if, like me, there's still stuff that you're wanting to let go of, and I have no doubt that there is, because life is a journey. We're just constantly reevaluating, growing on an ongoing basis. I'm sure you're aware of that. If there are thoughts that you're wanting to let go of, that's what you work on for next year. But maybe as you step through that portal of 2023 to 2024, you say, I'm done with this. I'm going to let that go. I don't want that in my awareness anymore. But maybe in 2023, you were fed up listening to other people and you decided to trust yourself more. So in doing that, you had to start having the thoughts that you know are the right thing for you to do, and stop listening to others all the time. Human design is really, really powerful for understanding more about your thoughts and listening to others. If you have an undefined head center, this impacts greatly on how much you are influenced by other people's thoughts. So don't be so hard on yourself, but do become aware of that. If you're ever wanting to do a human design reading, let me know, because I can put you in touch with someone. And if you are just wanting to find out, like get an idea of what it's like, the website that I love the most is called mybodygraph.com. It's all free. You just sign up, you like log in, so it saves your profile. And then you type in your details. The one thing that you will need, which is the one thing that prevents some people from doing human design, is that you need your time of birth. So you put in that information and then out pops your chart, and you'll be able to see the centers that are defined and undefined. And come and have a chat with me if you want to. I'm not a master at all, but I love, love, love talking about it. So if you're ever wanting to go there, please reach out. Who knows, I might become a master in future. But I have no doubt you've grown in a whole heap of strength this year, that your intuition has grown, that you've gained more confidence, and that over the year you likely created something because of the choices you made to change the way you thought. And don't be hard on yourself. There will be something you changed or let go of. So this is why it's so important to give yourself the space to reflect before this year is out, because it's truly valuable for you to do this. Another thing I've noticed personally about this year is the speed in which it passed. I mean, seriously, it was January just yesterday, right? But at the same time, it was January like 3 years ago. So it's really important that we acknowledge these experiences. I said that earlier. When I lost my tooth, for example, I experienced a whole heap of grief afterwards. And I wanted to acknowledge this grief and sit with it for a moment and reflect on the unfolding of the events that took place, the ones that led up to me getting my tooth removed, the referrals that I got, the intuition that I had to listen to, the incredible healing power of my body after the tooth was removed. It was really important to me that I took the time to acknowledge what I went through from beginning to end. And it wasn't so I could wallow in it or feel sorry for myself, but it was to grow in strength from all the emotion that I felt, to acknowledge the emotion and the strength it required me to have, and to process it rather than to store it within my body. And yes, it was just a tooth, but I had an attachment to that tooth. And that brought up a lot for me too. So acknowledging the emotions is always important, as well as recognizing the transition that took place for me to go from Bianca pre-removal to post. As I said before, I became a different person from that experience. And I guess this is why I'm recording this episode about reflection, because I want you to take the time to stop for a moment and acknowledge everything you've achieved this year. And remember that an achievement is everything. It's a breakup. It's a breakdown. It's a breakthrough. Achievement is falling apart and getting back up. Achievement is walking away from something or someone you love. Achievement is walking towards someone or something you love. Achievement is going broke or living frugally because you don't have much. And achievement is also gaining wealth. Achievement is saying something when you were afraid to, but also saying nothing because you were afraid. You have achieved so much in this year, my friend, so please take the time to acknowledge it all without judgment. And this leads me to my next point. The final point for today I want to talk about is gratitude. Even after all I've said, you may still be feeling down on yourself about the happenings of this year. I hope not. But you may be looking at this year and poo-pooing it still. So many people, myself included, I hear them say, and I've said, oh, can this year be over already? Maybe what you wanted to achieve was greater than what you feel you achieved. And if that's how you feel, that's okay. You didn't fail. You didn't have less of a year than anyone else. Just acknowledge how you feel in that moment and then let it go. Don't start 2024 feeling shame or guilt or wishing you did better. I'm doing air quotes right now. Wishing you did better last year or in 2023. Let it go. Life, remember, it's a journey, not a destination. You and I, we won't be better or happier when we're skinnier. We won't be better or happier when we're richer. We won't be better or happier when we're doing our dream jobs and believe that we found our purpose. I mean, these all have layers to them. Obviously, as you step up in life, you're going to feel more aligned and therefore more happy. But this is what life is about. Having an experience, growing from that experience, reflecting on that experience, and then doing it all again. And in that reflection, we want to say thank you to all of the stuff, whether we label it good or bad. We want to say thank you for it all. But in terms of happiness, feeling good, being successful, this is all about how you think and what you believe. Because your thoughts and your beliefs create how you feel, and they impact what you choose to do. So, my friend, you've been journaling this whole time, right? And if you haven't, please, at the end of this episode, take the time to reflect on your 2023. You may identify a theme as well. Maybe it was change. Maybe when you look back at 2023, you're like, oh, this year was all about love for me. Maybe it was about not giving up. Maybe it was about hard work and commitment. Maybe it was slowing down. Maybe it was standing up for yourself, challenging your mind. Or maybe you had seasons of this where you had a hard period, where you had a period where you slowed down, where you had a period where there was love. Whatever you find, whether your list of stuff that wasn't great was longer than the stuff that was great, I encourage you to see it all as one great big blessing, because it is. Can you think about the things that you've seen as tough, challenging, scary? Can you think of these times that you've had in 2023 and reflect on what opened up because of that situation? Who you met, what you received, conversation you had, what you learned. Challenge yourself to find the beauty in all of the experiences. Okay, my friend, thank you so much for being here today, for tuning in. I really do appreciate you. Take care of yourself during this holiday season. Take the time to slow down. Take some time out if you need it. Do what it is that you want to do. Don't feel obligated to do anything you don't want to do. Breathe. Rest. Eat good food. Eat the food you don't usually eat too. Enjoy it all. Be in good company. Don't get caught up in conversations or interactions that are not in resonance with how you feel and want to feel. Don't stoop to those people's levels. Make them come up to your level or walk away. Be with the people who light you up with their words and energy. Move your body if you feel the energetic pull to do so. Go on an adventure if you feel cold. Just follow exactly what you feel is best for you. No need to explain yourself to anyone, just do you. And most of all, Enjoy yourself. I will be having a very non-traditional holiday season, this one. I plan to take time for the summer solstice, the longest day of the year here in the Southern Hemisphere, the 21st. I have some conscious conversations planned. And then I have a cacao ceremony on the full moon, which is a couple of days before the new year. Beyond that, is anyone's guess? Whatever the universe wants to present me with, I'm there for it. Thanks again for being here. Please reach out if you feel called, and you'll find all my details in the show notes. And finally, thank you for showing me your love and support since the beginning of this podcast. I'd love it if you could give me a review and share it with someone you know would appreciate it. If you're not on my mailing list, be sure to sign up so you get notifications of the episodes as I release them, along with any other announcements and offerings I make along the way. Thank you, friend. I'm sending you so much love. Don't forget to reflect on 2023, and I'll see you next week for the next episode of the Finding Freedom podcast. Much love. Bye.